Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get to learn a little bit about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me from Australia, it's Wayno. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. And before we jump into our questions, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit and shamelessly plug whatever you'd like to shamelessly plug to the audience.
Yeah, I'm Wayno or Uncle Wayno. Got I'm a reseller for a living. All those DVDs and stuff behind you, I try to
Mhm.
buy out those sort of collections, and I keep what I want and I sell off the rest. So yeah, I've got a couple of YouTube channels. I've got a reselling channel, which doesn't get used that much, to be honest. And we've got a movie battles channel. So we do movie battles. It's kind of like a draft, like your sports fantasy style
Mhm.
draft. We come up with a unique list of movies each, and then we have people vote on who drafted the best list in a certain genre or whatever. So
Awesome.
yeah, we do that. They're both on Instagram as well. So it's heaps of fun. One of your a friend of your channel, Adam
Mhm.
Curbside Collections. He's been on a few episodes, and I'm also doing a new podcast with him, just the two of
Mhm.
us, talking about our love of 90s movies. We both grew up in the same era and we both absolutely love 90s movies. So we've just started that. I think we're in 4 episodes in or something. So that's on the Movie Battles channel as well.
I do appreciate some 90s movies. I was born in 91, so I
Oh,
was like
yeah.
kid throughout the 90s, but you know,
Yeah.
I watched a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have
Yeah.
sub
Yeah.
10 years old. So there's a lot of great 90s movies to appreciate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but absolutely check out some of Wayno's work, especially with friend of the show Adam. But let's dive in. What's your favorite film?
I usually just it's Heat. I tell people Heat.
Okay.
Um, I'm not huge on like I don't. Yeah, it can change basically. So I think a lot of people are like that anyway. But I absolutely love Heat. I think it's a masterpiece. It's one that talking about Adam. That's one of the episodes we've done so far, and he doesn't agree with me that it's a masterpiece. So it's quite
I'm
interesting.
fully aware of that. So it was
Yes.
interesting when you said that Heat was your favorite. So
Yeah, so we have very different takes on that movie, which is really interesting. I find it really interesting because most people, like, most people that you speak to love that movie. Like, oh,
mhm.
yeah, it's a masterpiece. And then to find someone that you just started a podcast with doesn't actually feel the same way makes it very interesting. But yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan of that movie. So I have been for a long time since it came out, 1995. So
There was a really great sweet spot for Michael Mann
yeah,
in that era, and arguably Heat is his magnum opus of just this LA crime thriller. And
yeah,
it's hard to argue getting to see Pacino and De Niro across the table from each other for the first time
yeah.
on screen. And I quote that movie on a pretty regular basis doing Al Pacino impressions because
Yeah, yeah.
he is so much fun in that movie.
Yeah, he is totally. It's funny, we talked about this on the podcast. A lot of people don't realize that conversation in the diner happened in real life. Like these guys were real people. Like
Mhm.
this movie was based on real characters. Like the
Yeah.
movie is based on a true story, but a lot of the scenes in the movie are based on things that happened with like the Neil McCauley, who Robert De Niro plays, is a real guy.
Mhm.
Um, Vincent, who Al plays, isn't a real guy, but he's based on a real guy. So
Yep.
yeah, it's really crazy that some of these things actually happened in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of a lot of Michael Mann's work. I'm a huge fan of Collateral. I think that's
yeah,
an
yeah,
absolutely fantastic film, and that's a excellent LA crime thriller double feature to go in with
yeah.
that. A little bit more like sleek and early 2000s bit,
It's very
and
yeah.
just
It's neo noir.
yep,
You could almost call Heat neo noir as well. So yeah, um, yeah, they're
absolutely.
definitely a great double feature.
Now, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
My memory is terrible. I'm
Fair.
quite old. I'm quite old now, so my memory's not great. But so I do have a few movies.
Mhm.
I know I went to the cinema to see before this one, but I can't really remember them. But this one's a better story anyway because my mum took me to watch Beetlejuice,
Nice.
uh, and it was in this brand new shopping center, and literally the only thing that was open was the cinema. It was really weird. I remember it. Still remember it really clearly. My dad actually had a store in the shopping center. There was about four stores that were open in this brand new shopping center,
Mhm.
or a mall, as you guys would call it. And yeah, so my mum took me to see Beetlejuice, and about half an hour in, I made her leave because I was too scared.
That is fair. Um, I have certainly had those kinds of experiences. It was definitely watching The Mummy for the first time
Oh yeah,
when I was too young, but being a sibling to somebody obsessed with Tim Burton, I have certainly watched Beetlejuice and Edward
yeah,
Scissorhands a lot.
yeah,
Um, my brother's a humongous Tim Burton fan, so those are
yeah,
some of his favorite films. But Beetlejuice, I just recently rewatched it towards the end of last year, with Beetlejuice coming out. And
yeah,
it just so tight, funny. Like it's a
yeah,
brisk watch, and the whole entire cast is excellent. And you probably don't even realize how little Michael Keaton's actually in the movie, but
yeah.
he's just absolutely electric every single second he's on screen for sure.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Mhm.
It's yeah. It's a shame that I can't say I've seen it at the cinema because I only saw half an hour or so of
Yeah,
it.
I definitely did not see it in a theater for sure. But I've watched it plenty of times at home for sure. Now, thinking of some other kinds of favorite questions, do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
I do, like we spoke about earlier, I have a big love of the 90s. I just love
Mhm.
90s thrillers. They just don't
Mhm.
make them anymore. They're just, or if they do, they're so low budget, they're just terrible. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's no one's given anyone a budget to make another breakdown. Like it can't happen these days. And I just love they're just straight down the line stories.
Mhm.
There doesn't have to be a big stupid metaphor, like, some weird ending where you have to try and figure out what the hell does that mean, like, which I do like some of those movies that are
Yeah.
coming out these days. But yeah, I kind of love how they just relied on good writing, good directing, and great actors. Like, so yeah, that's I always tell people that's my favorite genre. But I love a lot of drama movies as well from
Mhm.
those days as well, from the 90s as well. So yeah,
It was definitely a time where you could still get those like mid-budget
yeah,
kinds of not only dramas but thrillers that are geared towards adults would actually make a profit.
yeah,
And you can get some pretty big name actors to throw in there and have some of that like star power
yeah,
clout. And yeah, it's true. It's just that doesn't happen anymore. And it's sad because,
yeah.
like,
They need the DVD sales, and they just don't have the DVD sales. So
well,
yeah,
and the amount of movies that were saved because of physical media release
yeah,
afterwards. Because, like, those like 90s thrillers, you could just watch it over and over and over
yeah,
again. And like it's a perfect thing to buy and have that you could just pop it in whenever you want to have a good
yeah.
time, let off some steam and enjoy it. But it's certainly a different time. And I feel like it's very hard to find films that are in between even like 30 and $100 million at this
Oh
point,
yeah,
which is crazy to think that like $100 million is the low end of bigger movies at this point. You know,
yeah,
Netflix dropping $300 million on movies that just drop on Netflix is insane. But
yeah. A lot there's some people are trying their best. Like, I really appreciate what Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are trying to do. They're trying to bring those sort of movies back, but at the
yeah,
same time they still can't get the, like, that movie that just came, I can't remember what it's called, with Casey Affleck and Matt Damon in it.
oh yeah, that dropped on Apple.
Yeah,
Wow.
it actually wasn't bad, but it's like, well, you can see where it's lacking, the money. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of flat areas in the movie where they're just sitting in a room talking for like 10 minutes. And it's like,
Mhm.
they're trying to make the same movies as back then, but having to leave out kind of the best parts or some of the best parts. So
Well, and that's a great example too, because that is a movie that feels like it would have been released in the 90s with like
yeah,
even just like how stacked that cast is. They have so
yeah,
many good character actors popping up in there. And I enjoyed that movie a lot more than I think a lot of people did. But yeah, it's
so did
very
I.
true.
Yeah,
And look what it is. It's one of those kinds of movies that wound up on a streaming service instead.
yeah,
And that's a sad part. It's like, yep, going to be watching this at home instead of at
yeah.
least getting to experience that on a big screen for the first time. Now, thinking about behind the camera, who's your favorite filmmaker?
Um, Pretty common answer, but I just love Scorsese.
Hmm.
Uh, he's just amazing. Literally everything he does is gold. Even some people had some issues with Killers of the Flower Moon. I think it's one of his best movies. Like,
Hmm.
I think it's a masterpiece. I can't believe Leo didn't even get nominated for the Oscar because he's incredible in it. But I also have another one. I love De Palma. I absolutely
Hmm.
love Brian De Palma and everything he does. The way he's making very old school movies. Like, I mean, he's not
Yes.
anymore, but um, yeah, he kind of didn't really move with the times, which I loved. He just did him, and
Hmm.
he took a lot. His influences were like Hitchcock and a few other people, and then you
Hmm.
can see the people he's influenced, like Tarantino, for
Yeah.
instance. Like, but yeah, I love his split screens. I just love them. I think they're so unique, and some I could totally see if someone said, "Oh, that's cheesy," but I don't think it
That's the
is.
fun
Like,
part, though.
yeah, I love the fact that you can see the two things that are happening in real time, like
Hmm.
at the same time. I just find it fascinating, yeah, and other stuff that he does with the camera, I love. So
Hmm.
yeah, they're my two probably main ones.
Scorsese, obviously an all-time great and still doing it.
Yeah,
I was a huge fan of Killers of the Flower Moon. I really love The Irishman. I was
yeah.
one of the five people that went to go see Silence in theaters when they
I
dropped it
haven't.
here.
I still haven't seen it.
They did such a terrible job of promoting that movie because I
Yeah,
distinctly remember the trailer came out a month and a half before it released. They rushed it
yeah,
in the theaters to meet awards
yeah,
consideration, and then nobody saw it. And
yeah,
those are all great films. And outside of like his documentaries and stuff, it's basically been what Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, The
yeah,
Irishman, and Killers of the Flower Moon. It's like this man's 80.
yeah,
He's still doing some incredible things. And I
yeah,
feel like awards wise, they've just been taking him for granted recently,
yeah,
and that's why a lot of his films haven't been getting that awards love. But De Palma is such an interesting case of he's the fifth wheel of
yeah,
that group of friends where it's like
yeah,
Scorsese and Coppola are more of like the prestige and Spielberg and Lucas are over
yeah,
here making like the big blockbusters and De Palma's just like I like Hitchcock and
yeah,
I don't mind making a movie about adult film stars and just
yeah,
making whatever the hell he wants. And there's so many great De Palma movies that are so endlessly entertaining. And to your point exactly, that like mid-budget adult oriented thriller, like
yeah,
that's him. It is what he does. And I tomorrow I'm going to be rewatching The Untouchables, which is one of my favorite films. And
yeah,
even that's like for him is something very different genre wise, but then
yeah,
also him injecting himself into that very much. Um, Another movie I quote an endless amount of times because boy can I quote Capone over and
yeah,
over and over again. But it's just De Palma has such a unique voice, and obviously his career has fizzled out at this
yeah,
point. But I appreciate that he had very few instances where he like sold out, if you want to say, like making like
yeah,
bigger budgeted kind of studio films. I loved, was it Noah Baumbach made that documentary about him? That
yeah. I
was
just
such a
watched that.
yeah, that was a fascinating film to watch for sure.
I loved like that. what a way to make a documentary. Just sit a camera on De Palma and let him talk about his own movies for an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever. It was brilliant.
Which is interesting because I also loved Made in England, that new documentary about Powell and Pressburger, which was literally like grandpa time at the movies with Scorsese just sitting there talking about how much he loves all of Powell and Pressburger's movies. I'm like, I'm sitting in a theater, this beautiful independent theater in Princeton, New Jersey, watching Martin Scorsese just sit there and talk about
Yeah.
movies. I'm like, this is wonderful. I'm having a ball.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's
Now,
awesome.
thinking about in front of the camera, who are some of your favorite actors or actresses?
Um, oh, there's heaps. Like, obviously, loving Scorsese so much, I love Leo.
Yeah.
It's a really obvious answer, but one that I absolutely love is Ethan Hawke.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm a huge Ethan Hawke fan. I think he never sold out. He always just made the films that he wanted to make.
Yeah.
He did a lot of films with Linklater, who's amazing as well.
Yep. Hmm.
So yeah, I'm a huge Ethan Hawke fan. It's a little bit of a joke, not a joke, but yeah, on our channel where I think I even said at one point I'd have Ethan Hawke's babies. Uh, so yeah, I absolutely love him. And as far as actresses go, I love Frances McDormand. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, it's weird though because when I look at her filmography, there's actually a ton I haven't seen. But
Yeah.
I tell everyone she's my favorite actress. But yeah, you know, Fargo, Three Billboards, Ben After Read, like it's so much.
Mhm.
She is incredible in anything she's in, just phenomenal. And a more maybe a little bit younger actor, still getting up there now. Amy Adams, I love Amy
Mhm.
Adams. Yeah, I think she's incredible. Like Night Bitch that just came out last year. I actually gave that 4 out of 5 simply for her performance.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I just thought her performance was incredible. The movie maybe not so much, but yeah, I think she's amazing.
So I'll work a little bit backwards there. So Night Bitch is such a fascinating film because the concept that got everybody in the theater was, I felt like, the worst part of the movie. It's like
Yeah,
where it's really just focusing on her being a mother and processing that is great,
yeah,
honestly. And
yeah.
she's so good. And I never thought in my life I needed to hear her sing a Weird Al Yankovic song in a movie, but that made my night. Her
Yeah.
singing Dare to Be Stupid. Uh, Famously from the Transformers the movie soundtrack, which makes absolutely no sense why Weird Al made that for that movie, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I the second it cut to her singing it in the car, I'm like, oh my god, she's actually like listening to this song, and this is great. She is an actress who is being taken for granted.
She
I
100% is. And just as a little side note, I
Yeah.
refuse to watch, I don't watch trailers. I
Mhm.
refuse to read anything about any
You're better
movie that's
for it.
coming out.
So
Yeah, I'd like to go in as blind as possible. And Night Bitch, I found got a lot of hate or a lot of, it's okay. You know, I wish there was more werewolf stuff. You know, the trailer made me think it was going to be this or that. I went in pretty much blind
mhm.
and I really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
love it, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, expectations are the worst thing possible for movies, and it's very obvious that the marketing teams behind trailers have nothing to do with the movie because their job is to sell a
Oh, yeah.
movie
They don't care
that
if you
will get
like the
people in
movie
and
or
see
not
it.
in the end. They just care if
Mhm.
you paid the money to go and see it beforehand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, she's been taking some interesting choices in some of her projects, but like she needs to win an Oscar. She is that incredibly talented. And
Yeah.
the fact that she could show up in something like The Muppets and
Yeah.
absolutely kill it and do roles like that and do everything. And she's been doing it since what, Catch Me If You Can, where she even
Yeah.
pops up in like a smaller role with a lot of very famous actresses popping up in that movie with Leo. And she was
Yeah.
so good in that all the way up through, Rival. And I I distinctly remember seeing American Hustle and absolutely loving that movie, and then finding out that not everybody in the movie, but like she's incredible in it.
Yeah,
Her and Christian Bale are fantastic in that.
yeah.
Some, but and then Frances McDormand, I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan. They're my favorite
Oh yeah,
filmmakers, and she, well, obviously she has a strong connection to the Coen. She's married to one, but
yeah,
like she just fits so perfectly into their world. And Fargo, that's one of the best performances. Period. Marge Gunderson is
yeah,
such an amazing character, and Frances McDormand does such amazing things. She is such a great actor that something like Nomadland would win her an Oscar, which is so
yeah,
stripped down and very, very simple in what it's trying to do. And she just makes such a lasting impression. And
yeah,
even something like Burn After Reading, where it's just Linda Litsky,
yeah.
and just like the little things. But I have a fun story about Ethan Hawke for you. So
Yeah.
that little theater that I mentioned in Princeton is called the Princeton Garden Theater, and he's from Princeton, New Jersey.
Oh,
And
okay.
they used to have at the beginning where it's like turn off your cell phones and stuff like that. They had a bumper where it was him sitting there. It's like, my friends and I used to sit up, when they used to have a balcony in the Princeton Garden Theater and like flick candy off the balcony and hit people and then hide. And then they think the people behind them did it. So we used to do really annoying things in the theater. Cell phones are the annoying thing today. So just turn off your phone.
Yeah,
And it was such a fun thing to have in there. And
yeah.
so that's just a small little story. But Ethan Hawke is such a talented actor. My wife is my both my brother and my wife are not fans. And my wife,
Oh,
I think,
really?
said he looks like the kind of person that was never meant to be famous and then wandered onto a film one day and then became famous. But like he's not the kind of person who wants to be famous. He just wants to act.
No,
And
I would tell your wife and brother to watch a few interviews with him because
mhm,
you can't help but love him when you hear, especially when he talks about film. Like he is so passionate about it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just you just got to watch a few interviews with him, and like that really, uh, the real person behind the actor uh, really has a big impact on whether I or not I like them or how much
Mhm.
I like them. There's some actors or whatever you find out they're just terrible people, and it's like it really grinds on you a bit. But then you watch interviews with a good example is for a long time I never liked Colin Farrell, and I don't know what it was. I just didn't
Well, to
like
be fair,
him.
he is kind of a dick when he was younger. So,
Yeah. But now, like you see interviews with him now, and it's like he seems like the best guy. Like, and I love
yeah,
him now. Like, I grew to love him anyway.
yeah.
But apart from that, but yeah, he just seems
I
like the
uh
best guy.
I was not a fan. Like I
Yeah,
was in my early teens when he had a bunch of his films coming out, like God, Daredevil and Alexander. I'm just like, who is this guy?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then, of course, In Bruges changed everything. And
yeah.
since
Oh
then, he's become one of my favorites. And Banshees of Inisherin, I'm like,
yeah,
I wanted him to win the Oscar so bad for that, but
yeah,
I couldn't be upset with Brendan Fraser winning. So I'm like, it's okay. Colin Farrell, you'll get it some other day. And now
yeah,
he's just winning a whole bunch of awards for playing Oz Cobb, the Penguin, which is so
yeah,
much
yeah.
fun. Now, what's a film that you feel like you could literally watch every day?
It's a pretty easy answer because it's a movie that I probably did watch literally every day when I was younger, and it's T2, Terminator 2. I've seen it that many times, it's not funny. And it's still a blast when I watch it.
Mhm.
Takes me right back to, yeah, I think I was 12 when it came out, something like that, maybe 12, 13. And yeah, it also, I back then I was writing to Guns N' Roses, and it was just like I was the perfect age for that movie to come out.
Mhm.
And I had it on VHS and just, yeah, played
It's
it
one
to
of my
death.
favorites, and that is like peak '90s movies. Like
Yeah,
James Cameron just completely knocked it out of the park, and he knows make how to make a sequel.
yeah,
Whether it was Aliens or T2 Judgment Day, taking a concept and just expanding upon it in such an amazing way. And
yeah,
I think I made a friend here who would have my back in this argument. I've been having the same argument with my good friend Matt, who's in my movie club for the past 11 years, on what's the greatest action sci-fi film of all time, T2 or The Matrix?
Oh, it's 100% T2.
Which I saw. I
Yes.
understand your feelings about The Matrix, so I finally have an ally in this. Because every single person I brought up, they're like The Matrix. I'm like, you need to go rewatch T2 Judgment Day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
which I do love The Matrix, but T2 Judgment Day is one of my favorite movies, and it's just perfect. It's perfection. And James Cameron is a mad genius of film and a crazed inventor. And maybe someday he'll stop making Avatar movies and make something else too.
Yeah. Hopefully.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. Like he's pretty far up himself as a, as a person.
I
Um,
just feel like in a world, I want to know that there's an alternate universe where he took all of that energy and made Terminator sequels instead,
yeah.
and what world we could live in when that
Yeah.
existed. Because he's the only person that really should be making Terminator movies, based off of the track record of the Terminator movies. So
Yeah. And
just
Avatar's just I've only seen the first Avatar and I couldn't care less about it. doesn't
like it's a
doesn't do
hard
anything for me.
sell if like you don't like the first movie to go in and watch a 3 hour and 15-minute sequel. And
Yeah.
then he just announced that the third one is even longer.
Wow.
So, but apparently his wife cried for hours after watching the movie because it was that moving. So I don't know. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
see when that comes out. I think that's supposed to come out this December, next
Okay.
December. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
trust him. He made us wait so
No.
long for the second one. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if I can
When it
trust you.
I don't care when it comes out, I won't be watching it.
So there you go. Now, what's a film that connects closely to you because it relates to another interest of yours?
I actually had a hard time thinking of something for this
Mhm,
question. I've gone a bit lighthearted. So I've gone for another one that I grew up with, and
mhm.
it it actually is my name, has my name in it. It's Wayne's World.
Nice.
Um, so I love music. Like I probably love
Mhm.
music more than movies. Like I know probably know a lot more about music than movies as well. Um, and you know, Wayne's got his little TV show in
Yep.
his basement, and I've got my YouTube channel, and he loves going to gigs, and just listening to like rock and metal music, and it's pretty much me. Just likes hanging out with his mates, talking shit. Yeah, that's pretty much me.
I have a fun story that I think you'll appreciate. So I used to work in a snack bar at the pool at a country club for 3 summers in college. And the two like pool managers who are like teachers that have that job over the summer. One of them, his name was Lee, and I'd be in the snack bar with my music on, listening to Rush and all kinds of stuff like this. And he would just come and be like, Shane's World, party time, excellent. And I'm just like, I appreciate this. I appreciate this very much. So no, I'm a big fan of music too, and
Yeah,
I'm excited because I work at a college, and when I was a student at this college, I had a radio show on the college radio station for 4 semesters, and they're
yeah,
doing
yeah.
an alumni radiothon in less than 2 weeks, and I'm going to be bringing my show back.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
very excited for that, but I could definitely appreciate that, and I feel like if you love like rock music you have to love Wayne's World, right? Like, I feel
Yeah,
like that's like required viewing. So,
it's so much fun. It's like it's
so
full of
much
dad
fun.
jokes. Yeah, it's
It's
great.
like, I'm from Peoria, Illinois. Like every single household had a copy of Frampton Comes Alive. And we're just like, I love Peter Frampton. So, um, now who's a movie character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
This one I really had trouble with.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna change your question. Is that all right?
Okay.
I'm gonna change it to a movie that connected with me. Is that all right?
Okay. Sure.
Um, because I just think this movie is a masterpiece, and it it's The Father with Anthony Hopkins. Um, so my grandma's got dementia, and like the last few years, having to watch like my mum have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And the father is Anthony Hopkins has dementia, and it's told from his perspective. It's so brilliant the way it's done.
Yeah.
It's told from his perspective of not being able to understand and remember things, in his life, especially like his family members.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just so brilliant. The filmmaker made another movie called The Sun, which is terrible.
That
Afterwards,
was that was like the most deflating
yeah,
follow-up to this movie. And that made
yeah,
me so sad because like I love Hugh Jackman and I thought Hugh Jackman was great in the movie, but like that
yeah,
movie was something. But no, the
yeah,
father and my I lived with my grandparents from when I was 2 until I was almost 21. And my grandmother had dementia from like the last 8 years of her life. And
yeah,
that movie just hits in a whole
yeah,
different kind of way because of that. And it's challenging because it's hard to not to be on Chadwick Boseman's side of wanting him to win Best Actor, but like it's not like Anthony Hopkins didn't deserve that because
yeah,
like it's such an incredible performance that he gives in The Father that just
yeah,
caused one of the most awkward, dumbest moments in the history of the Oscars because they were banking on Chadwick Boseman winning. It's like this is
yeah,
why Best Picture should always go on at the end, no matter
yeah.
what. Please never do that again. So
Yeah, like I mean, and it's probably a movie that a lot of people like can connect with, like
yeah,
because so many people have to go through it. So, but yeah, I just loved the way it was made.
yep.
Uh, so telling it from his perspective, I think that's what hurt him with the son. He didn't do that. Like you should have told the son from the son's perspective in the same sort of way. But yeah,
I didn't think about that, but to be frank, honestly, they probably should have.
yeah,
That probably would have made a lot. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but like the actor that they got to play the son wasn't the strongest actor.
yeah,
And like I want to be wary about criticizing like child actors and stuff like that. And like he's a teenager, but like still, um,
I mean,
there's
it's
a
not
lot of
his fault. It's the people that did the casting. Like,
yes,
so
they
yeah,
should have they sh- that movie relied so much on emotion and
yeah,
heavy topics and it just didn't click, which is so sad because Florian Zeller's effort with The Fathers is absolutely incredible for sure.
yeah.
Now, what's a film that you love that you feel like would surprise people?
I've gone with the Wizard of Oz.
Hmm.
Probably surprised people because if you've listened to me dribble on enough, you will know that I don't really like musicals.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't interest me. But I grew up with the Wizard of Oz. I
Yep.
saw it a million times. I think it's the only VHS that I ever kept that I
Hmm.
actually still have the copy of, and
Nice.
it stops about three-quarters of the way through. It doesn't keep playing, so
And
but I still kept it just for sentimental reasons. I've seen it
yeah,
so many times. I think I've said this heaps of times. I think Somewhere Over the Rainbow or Over the Rainbow is the greatest song ever written. I just think it's the one song where uh nobody hears it and says, I'm gonna swear.
yeah, go ahead.
Nobody hears that song and says, fuck this song. Like everybody loves that song, no matter who you are. Like yeah, I just think, yeah, it's an absolute classic. So I think if people have been listening to me a bit over the years, they would be surprised to know that I actually love that movie.
This is going to sound like a weird statement, but I'm going to say I feel like a lot of people don't even aren't conscious of the fact that they're watching a musical.
Yeah,
I think I think like you go in and watch a musical, you're like, okay, this is a musical. I feel like The Wizard of Oz is such a cultural touchstone that people don't even register the fact that they're watching a musical, even though
yeah,
people just break out in the song consistently throughout the whole entire movie. But like, I
yeah,
just think it's the magic of the whole entire experience. It just feels like something different. And
yeah,
I think I think that could potentially explain like it's something that transcends just being a fantasy movie or a musical. It is literally one of the most important films ever created that completely changed film, and it is iconic beyond the vast majority of films ever made. So,
And
and yeah,
I started to think that it was dying off like for so many generations people have grown up with it, but it did feel like the last 20 years or so people weren't showing it to I don't have kids, but it did feel like people weren't really showing it to their kids anymore. And like Wicked's come out, and hopefully that's bring like I haven't seen Wicked. I'm not going to
yeah.
watch it because I don't actually think I'll like it.
Mhm.
I've asked a few people that have seen it if I would like it. They're like, no, you wouldn't. And but hopefully,
Very
like
musical.
yeah, I'm hoping that brings the Wizard of Oz back into people showing their young, and I know it has because I know people that have shown it to their kids because of Wicked. So
Well, and I think that's a great thing that it's doing because if a film could turn people to one of the greatest films ever created, one of the most
yeah,
iconic and important films ever created, it's hard to argue that that's not a good thing.
yeah,
So
100%.
we appreciate that. Now, my last question is, what do you love most about movies?
This might be a little bit left field, but it's the friendships I've made through movies.
Mm,
So when you start up a YouTube channel or even just an Instagram account,
yeah.
you end up making a bunch of friends that have the same interests as you.
Hmm.
So, like I talked about earlier, my favorite genre is 90s thrillers.
Hmm.
Me and Adam grew up at pretty much the same time. Like we've only just met a few months ago, but we were both teenagers through the 90s. So
Yeah.
we could talk all day with each other about 90s movies. Like, you find people that are, are really close to your same obsessions. So I've made a bunch
Mhm.
of friends. Buddy, who's one of my co-hosts on movie battles. I met him on Instagram like 4 or 5 years ago because he was a reseller as well, and he was like writing the movies. So we just became friends, through just meeting each other on Instagram, talking about movies. So yeah, there's a ton of people I've made friends with just through movies. So
I can certainly relate to that for
yeah,
sure. And we share a friend, Adam,
yeah,
who honestly I've become really good friends with, and I describe myself as a hobbit. I don't like to
yeah,
travel a whole lot. I don't
yeah,
like to leave my hobbit hole for too long. But like
yeah,
it legitimately makes me want to go. Like Australia was on my short list already of places that I would like to go to. But like
yeah,
it's something like really makes me want to actually go and get to meet Adam in person
yeah,
and some of those friends and because of this, I've met friends all across the world, which is crazy. Our buddy
yeah,
Luke, who we do our monthly podcast with, is in Scotland and he's from the Czech Republic.
yeah,
I have friends all across the United States, and some of them have gotten to meet in person because I realized like I only live 2 hours from you. Um, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
took me going across the internet to meet you and stuff like that. So I could definitely relate. And so many of my friends, we've become friends because of our love of movies. And,
yeah,
there's other things that we have in common, but like that first thing usually is movies. And that's something special.
yeah. I
It
mean,
true.
I got a bunch
Mhm.
of mates that I've been mates with for years, but you know, some of them, like if I tried to talk movies with them, they'd be like, "What? I don't care." Like,
Yeah.
like so, and I think it's the same for everyone. Everyone has their own niches, like their little. Even within movies, you have your own little niche
Yeah.
of movies that you love. So, like, people that like a reel just came up on Instagram today of me bagging out Star Wars, but there's a bunch of Star Wars fans on Instagram that have all connected with each other. Like
Yeah.
and become friends. Like, it's great.
It really is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
So that's a special moment. Now,
Yeah.
Wayno, thank you so much. And how I always like to wrap up my show is have my guest ask me a question. So, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
I haven't actually thought about this too much, but one thing I did notice about you is you post a lot of videos. I want to know where you get the time.
That is the age-old question, and everybody has their thoughts. Adam, in particular, is 100% convinced that I have a time turner
Yeah.
from Harry Potter, which now, if that did exist, it would only double my power. And I'm like, what I could accomplish. um, but it's a mixture of I don't like I sleep 5 to 6 hours a night. Like I don't need like I'm not the kind of person that needs like 10 hours of sleep. Trust me, I know some
Yeah.
people. Like my brother could get an insane amount of hours of sleep. And
Yeah.
also I don't like I also know people that could just sit around and just, you know, doom scroll or do nothing for hours. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't do that. I always feel like I need to be doing something and accomplishing something. And that combination is a vicious combination and then turns
Yeah. Yeah.
into I have found my fixation. And quoting the Joker, I'm like a dog chasing a car. And that car is always going. There's always
Yeah.
movies. So I'll never stop. But I think my in my own head canon, what I've come up with, which I think is funny because it came out of that rumors going around about the new Fantastic Four movie and like, are they going to have the Council of Reeds, where it's like Reed Richards from a whole bunch of different multiverses come
Yeah.
together and make decisions? And I'm like, what if there was a Council of Shanes? I'd be unstoppable. Like nobody could stop me. And then my wife joked that if it was a council of Jesses, they wouldn't even have a meeting, because they wouldn't be able to plan it. So, but like it's those kinds of things that I find fun, and you know, everybody can enjoy a little bit of mythos around yourself.
Yeah.
It's
I,
funny.
I I envy it. I envy people like you because I am one of those people who needs. I actually have a sleep condition. I need 8 hours sleep. I get to the end of the day, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I do not even want to talk to anyone. Like I just want to lie on the couch, watch movies, look at my phone. So yeah,
Mm.
I do have a lot of downtime where if I guess if I if I was more like you, I could actually pump out a lot more stuff. But
Well, and obviously like my reviews and stuff like that are just like solo efforts for myself, but like all the shows that I do, it's also me hanging out with people.
yeah,
And like I didn't start all these shows to make big and make money. Like
yeah, yeah,
if I did, I would be planning them and doing them in a very different kind of way. Like
yeah.
I do them for fun. And
Yeah,
like this show, I literally started during COVID because I'm like, I need to talk to people.
yeah,
Like I miss human beings.
yeah,
So, and it just started with like the first episode was my wife and then my
yeah,
brother. And then it kind of snowballed into like I get to talk to filmmakers and stuff and, meet people like you, Wayno. And I
yeah.
thought this was a lot of fun and making new connections and stuff like that. And honestly, I kind of treat it like I'm hanging out with my friends a lot of
Oh,
the time. It's just
that
like,
is
we're just,
exactly what we say
yeah.
about movie
So
battles. Like
I'm like,
we love movie but like we regularly say on movie battles, we couldn't care less if nobody watches. We we're
we
just
had the fun. So that's all that
yeah,
matters.
we're just mates catching up. So, and that's why you can pretty much you can tune in and pretty much hear anything because anything could be said, and we just don't care. So,
Yeah, because like I have my movie club and it's a once a month podcast. I'm like, do I care if anybody really listens to that podcast?
yeah,
It's literally just my friends. And I started that during COVID too. It's like we pick a movie each month and we all watch it. Some of us get to watch it in person because we're close enough. And then we
yeah,
all hang out on a Sunday night and talk about it.
yeah,
So that's fun to me. So there you go.
yeah. That's
But
awesome.
Thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking movies with me.
Oh, it was awesome. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was really fun.
Awesome. And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.